When the First Vatican Council talks about our understanding of God, the Council emphasizes that our knowledge is analogical. What do we mean by that? The Council means that when we say something positive about God, we can say something that makes sense and is truthful, but it doesn't express a full comprehension of God's essence. Instead, what we are doing is using the language of mortal, finite creatures and using that language to describe an immortal, almighty, infinite God. There is a lot that we can say about that, and if you're interested, one of the chapters of my book, Faith Seeking Understanding, deals with what we mean by an analogical understanding of God. But to put this as simply as possible, St. Thomas Aquinas speaks of analogical knowledge of God proceeding in three ways. He talks about knowing God through affirmation, negation, and eminence. That is, we affirm something of God, so we say, God is this, but we negate it to say that God is not altogether like that, but that God is supereminent, that God is greater than that. To put Thomas Aquinas into plain English, what this means is three things. So affirmation, negation, and eminence means God is like something that we know humanly. But God is not limited by our human concept, because God is greater than or more than our human concept. Let's put this in concrete terms. Take the statement, God is love. If we analyze that statement, what do we mean by it? What we are saying is this: the way of affirmation to say that God is like this is to say, God is love, or God is like our human experience of love. We have an understanding of the nature of God formed from our human experience. We say that God is love means that God is like the human experience of love. The way of negation says that God is not love as we know it, because human love is imperfect. Sometimes it's conditional, sometimes it's not constant, sometimes it's not given to everyone, sometimes it's not free, and sometimes love is not given at all. So we say that God is love means that God is like human love, but God is not limited by the limits of human love, because the way of eminence says that God is more than love. God transcends human love utterly. In other words, God is like human love. So when we say God is love, we have a sense of what that means. But God is not limited by human love, because God is not limited by the experience of mortal, finite love. Because God is more than love as we know it. God is infinitely loving, constantly loving, loving in an almighty, constant way. So, to summarize what we mean by the analogical approach, is to say that God is like something, not something, but more than that thing. And the example of God as love, I think, is the best example we can use to clarify that. So I think an important lesson to be learned here, and this is really what Vatican I is driving at, is that we should never assume that God fits our own concepts. Rather, in theology, we should be challenged to refer our ideas of God back to what has been revealed about God and ask this question: do our human concepts do justice to an understanding of God? If they don't, how can we reform or renew our thinking? I make that point because Sometimes we use analogical understanding of God and we make the mistake of thinking that that analogical concept captures the entire essence of God. It doesn't. And it's also important because in the history of the church, many of the heretics who've failed or fallen into error have made the mistake of assuming that God fits their human concepts. And by limiting God to their human concepts, they've strayed from the authentic Christian tradition.